On the dark night of September 16, 2013, the quiet countryside of Travan Province, Vietnam, was suddenly shaken by a chilling discovery at the remote Bo Si Temple. An abandoned motorcycle by a pond, a woman's purse scattered about, and mysterious footprints that vanished into the night. No one could have imagined that these seemingly harmless items would unlock a horrifying crime that had haunted the entire region. Behind the peaceful facade of the ancient temple, a dark secret was waiting to be exposed. Let's explore today's case with Crime Documentary Files. Late on the night of September 16, 2013, the silence of Bo Si Temple, an ancient temple nestled quietly in the remote countryside of Con Long District, Travan Province, was suddenly broken by strange sounds. Local residents spotted a suspicious young man sneaking out from the bushes toward the temple gate. Thinking he was just a drug addict wandering around, they quickly notified the police. But when law enforcement arrived at the scene, the mysterious figure had vanished like smoke, leaving behind only puzzling clues. An abandoned motorcycle, a women's purse, and men's clothing scattered along the pond's edge. No one came forward to claim these strange items, forcing authorities to file a report and hold them for investigation. The decisive breakthrough came when authorities traced the license plate of the abandoned motorcycle. The results shocked everyone. The vehicle belonged to Tranthi Din Ningon, a 24-year-old student attending continuing education at Travan Province's Adult Education Center, the same girl whose family had reported missing. According to the missing person report, Nan had vanished since the afternoon of September 13th after leaving home for school. For days, her family had exhausted themselves, searching everywhere with no information. It wasn't until September 17th that her uncle officially filed a missing person report with Travan City Police. This delayed reporting inadvertently created numerous obstacles for the investigation. Valuable traces had faded, leaving only vague hypotheses ranging from accident to voluntary disappearance. Additionally, Nan's complex living situation and network of relationships made narrowing down the circle of suspects extremely difficult. However, the motorcycle's unusual appearance at Bo Si Temple served as a valuable clue. Information from Con Long District Police helped Travan City investigators quickly notice a suspicious coincidence: the timing of Nan's disappearance and when her belongings suddenly appeared at the remote temple dozens of miles from her home. The abandoned motorcycle wasn't just a means of transportation, but like a puzzle piece in a carefully calculated cover-up scheme. This assessment fired up the investigation team's spirit. The head of Travan Province Police's Criminal Investigation Department immediately ordered the deployment of 5 of their most experienced detectives to join the search for truth. The urgent mission was clear: determine by any means necessary the identity of the mysterious figure at Bo Si Temple and discover the connection between him and the missing girl Tran Nan. Following every remaining trace from the motorcycle, investigators achieved their first breakthrough. In Nan's phone contacts, one name appeared like lightning: Kim Sophia, her boyfriend of 2 years, who was also her classmate. Like a natural reflex, Sophia immediately became the primary investigation target. This was an unwritten rule in missing person cases. Those closest to the victim were often the key to unlocking the truth. However, this case had a factor that made everything more complex than usual. Kim Sophia wasn't an ordinary criminal suspect that investigators had previously encountered. He was a Buddhist monk. From this point on, Kim Sophia was officially in the investigation team's crosshairs and became a closely monitored target. But due to the suspect's special status, a monk respected by the community, the surveillance had to be conducted with absolute precision. There could be no mistakes that might shake believers' faith or damage the temple's reputation. The detectives had to carefully track their targets every step while maintaining the normal appearance of local residents. Notably, Sophia displayed a suspiciously calm demeanor. His monastic life continued to flow in its familiar rhythm. Morning prayers, afternoon temple cleaning, showing no signs of worrying or anxiety whatsoever. This tranquility wasn't normal for someone connected to a serious missing person case, making the investigation team even more suspicious of his ability to hide his true emotions. On October 17, 2013, the investigation agency decided to move from surveillance to concrete action by officially summoning Sophia. This marked an important turning point, the first direct confrontation between the suspect and the law. In the serious interrogation room, Sophia began his subtle psychological performance. With a carefully calculated expression of anguish, he honestly admitted to a 2-year relationship with Engin while skillfully expressing the sadness and worrying of a boyfriend unable to contact his girlfriend. Even more cunningly, Sophia tried to control the direction of the conversation. He cleverly presented fabricated details, painting Yan as a girl with a blindly jealous personality who constantly created unreasonable arguments. Every word he spoke was carefully considered, like a pre-written script aimed at portraying himself as a helpless victim in a toxic and difficult relationship. But what Sophia thought was a perfect performance couldn't fool the sharp eyes of experienced investigators. Through decades of experience facing all types of criminals, they had developed the ability to see through the true nature behind masks. Sophia's excessive calmness combined with eyes that dared not look directly at his interrogators betrayed him. Then the decisive moment arrived. In the tense atmosphere of the interrogation room, one of the investigators suddenly asked him, "Do you know anything about Nan's motorcycle and purse found at Bosi Temple?" This question struck at the heart of the entire script Kim Sophia had constructed. For the first time, he faced concrete, undeniable evidence. Evidence he hadn't psychologically prepared to confront. In just an instant, confusion was clearly visible on Sophia's face. But less than a minute later, he quickly regained his composure and began weaving an entirely new story, a new confession aimed at misleading the investigation away from the real truth. With a calculated tone, Sophia claimed that on the night of September 14th, just one day after Nan disappeared, they had met to discuss escape plans. They intended to flee together to Ho Chi Minh City, then find a way to cross the border into Cambodia to start a new life away from all family and social constraints and pressures. However, according to his account, tragedy struck right on the Cu Chien ferry. In the middle of the vast waters, a heated argument erupted between them. In his anger, he pushed Nan into the river. With a frighteningly cold expression, Sophia described the scene he claimed to have witnessed. Nan struggling desperately in the water, then slowly sinking into the river while he stood there silently watching without any intention of helping. Afterward, he calmly took possession of her motorcycle and headed straight to Ho Chi Minh City. To explain the mysterious appearance of the motorcycle at Bosi Temple, Sophia continued his story by saying that after several days hiding in Ho Chi Minh City, fear had become unbearable. He decided to return to Travan and in panic had dumped the motorcycle along with Nan's purse near Bosi Temple Gate before hurriedly fleeing. It must be admitted that the story Sophia wove sounded quite convincing and dramatic. If Nan had really been pushed into the Cochin River, finding her body would become a difficult, perhaps impossible challenge. This would create the perfect opportunity for Kim, Sophia to escape punishment or face only lighter charges for involuntary manslaughter. However, these veteran investigators, having gone through hundreds of complex cases, were people easily trapped by false testimony. Although they maintained outward calm and continued taking meticulous notes, alarms were already sounding in their heads. Without hesitation, the investigation team immediately sent a group of investigators to Cochin Ferry Dock to verify the claims. And it was here that Sophia's testimony began to collapse. Reality showed that the protective railings on the ferry were designed with considerable height, creating a physical barrier that made pushing someone into the river nearly impossible, without attracting attention from other passengers and crew members. Furthermore, the hydrological conditions of the Cu Chien River at the mentioned time completely contradicted Sophia's account. The current during that period was relatively calm with no factors that could make a body completely disappear. According to natural laws, if someone had actually drowned in this area, the body would have surfaced within a few days. But after thoroughly reviewing all reports from local authorities, no cases of body discovery were recorded around the Kuchian River area during the relevant time period. Clearly, Non had never fallen into the river as he claimed. When faced with razor-sharp arguments, irrefutable scientific evidence, and confrontation with witnesses at the scene, Sophia began showing his first signs of losing composure. The sophisticated shell he had painstakingly built began to crack. The atmosphere in the interrogation room became suffocating and tense. Sweat began beading on Sophia's forehead, his hands trembling, no longer maintaining his previous calm. Finally, in that breathlessly quiet room, Sophia realized his charade had been exposed. After a long, terrifyingly silent pause, he spoke in a hoarse, trembling voice, "I will tell the truth," and what he was about to reveal would make even seasoned investigators shudder at the cruelty and darkness of the human soul. Kim Sophia, born in 1989 in Town Province, had spent nearly a decade of his life the path of monasticism, a Watsam Rangak temple with the Dharma name Tantam. Following the long-standing cultural tradition of the Khmer community, he had entered monastic life at age 15 with the purpose of practicing filial piety, expressing deep gratitude to his parents. What was special was that after completing the usual 3-year study period, Sophia decided to continue embracing monastic life instead of returning to secular life. The reason he gave was that he had found true tranquility and peace in the sacred space of the temple, while recognizing this as the ideal environment to continue his path of learning and knowledge cultivation. However, it was during this pursuit of cultural education that fate arranged a meeting that would completely change his life's trajectory. It all began on an ordinary rainy day when Kim Sophia was invited by Tranthi Ding Non, a classmate, to share a ride to avoid the rain shower. From that seemingly accidental trip, initial conversations began, then increasingly frequent text exchanges, gradually developing into a secret but passionate love affair. It was a fateful collision between two worlds. Sophia, a monk experiencing for the first time the powerful stirrings of earthly love, emotions he thought he had abandoned when donning the monk's robes, and Non, a young girl with a sincere heart, full of life and longing to be completely loved. This forbidden relationship developed so intensely that Non was willing to break all social barriers to visit Wat Sumic Temple to see her lover. However, like all romances that go against social rules, their happiness didn't last long. After just a few months of infatuation, the first cracks began to appear when Sophia gradually realized the impossibility of this relationship. He began expressing intentions to end everything. The change in him didn't simply stem from recognizing the contradiction between monastic life and earthly love. The truth was even darker. While still maintaining his relationship with Non, Sophia had secretly begun another affair with a different girl. His sexual appetite had made him unable to be satisfied with just one person. Yan, with the keen intuition of a woman in love, quickly sensed the coldness and distance in her lover's behavior. Suspicions of betrayal grew day by day, reaching their peak when she witnessed Sophia being intimate with another girl. Right when Non was feeling devastated by the betrayal, she discovered a truth that completely turned her life upside down. She was pregnant with Sophia's child. At this point, Non fell into complete despair. She was both betrayed and facing an unwanted pregnancy. In pain and anger, Non repeatedly came to the temple, determined to confront Sophia about his betrayal and demand he take responsibility for the child in her womb. But Sophia, like a coward, continuously sought ways to avoid her. He hid behind temple walls and asked other monks to conceal him from Non's pursuit. Sophia's silence and avoidance only pushed Non deeper into the abyss of despair. When all attempts at direct confrontation failed, Non decided to use the power of social media to force Sophia to face his responsibilities. With feelings full of resentment and determination, Non created a fake Facebook account and began her own truth exposure campaign. She posted numerous accusations about Sophia's private life, accompanied by cleverly edited images showing him alongside various different girls. These posts were like psychological bombs dropped on the online community, directly attacking Sophia's deadly weakness, the stark contradiction between the image of a noble monk and the reality of a promiscuous womanizer. Nan not only exposed his romantic relationships with multiple women, but also affirmed that he had gotten her pregnant, then denied all responsibility, abandoning her in difficult circumstances. This information spread at lightning speed on social media, creating a wave of heated discussion in the local community. Public opinion began buzzing with harsh criticism of a fake monk appearing everywhere. Sophia suddenly found himself at risk of losing everything. Fearing discovery by the head monk, Sophia was forced to abandon his avoidance tactics and proactively seek a solution. He decided to humble himself, actively contacting Nan to propose a meeting. His last hope was to convince her to remove the accusatory posts and end this online war peacefully so both could return to normal life. The fateful meeting was arranged for the night of September 13, 2013. The chosen location was the garden behind Watsam Rangak Temple, a secluded place with little foot traffic. At 9 p.m., the sound of Nan's Honda motorcycle echoed through the quiet night. Following Sophia's directions, she skillfully circled to the temple's back gate, avoiding curious eyes that might see them. The two then quietly turned into a dark corner. They sat down on the damp grass, silently, eating grilled skewers that Nan had brought along. Nan sat facing Sophia, her eyes full of complex emotions, pain, anger, desperation, and even a last glimmer of hope that this man still had some conscience left. Meanwhile, Sophia appeared restless and uneasy, his eyes constantly darting around. The conversation began with gentle, even polite words, as if both were trying to maintain a normal appearance. But the atmosphere quickly became tense when Sophia began mentioning his intention to end the relationship, to focus on his monastic path. Nan wasn't naive. She understood clearly that this was just an excuse wrapped in beautiful words. The truth was that Sophia wanted to escape responsibility, wanted to turn his back on her and their unborn child. The emotions that had been suppressed for so long finally exploded, and Gon burst into tears. Through her choked sobs, she reproached Sophia for his heartlessness, for how he could so coldly abandon them both so cry. In complete desperation, Nan revealed she had brought a knife. She declared she wouldn't let Sophia easily leave and escape his responsibilities. This wasn't just a threat, but the manifestation of a woman pushed to the final limit of endurance. But Sophia remained cold and indifferent. He slowly turned his back, preparing to leave as if Nan's pleas and threats meant nothing. This action was like the final spark igniting the emotional bomb that had accumulated in Nan's heart. In a moment of reckless desperation, Nan pulled the knife from her purse and lunged towards Sophia with all her strength. The blade aimed straight at him with lethal intent, but he managed to dodge in time, causing the knife to only graze his clothing. However, the impact was still strong enough to make him lose balance and fall to the ground. This dangerous moment pushed Sophia to his limit. He sprang up with crazed eyes. In uncontrolled fury, Sophia violently threw Gun to the ground. His eyes blazed with hatred, completely deaf to her pitiful cries or weak resistance from the pregnant girl. With hands once used for prayer and chanting, he strangled in Nan's neck until she completely stopped breathing. The darkness in the temple garden suddenly became eerily silent. No more crying, no more struggling, only deathly silence enveloping everything. When Sophia released his hands and looked down at Nan's motionless body, panic surged within him. With fear of discovery, arrest, punishment quickly swallowed everything. At that moment, he knew he had crossed the line, and there was no way back. With a panicked but still lucid enough mindset to calculate, Sophia dragged Nan's body to the most hidden corner of the garden, where it was least likely to be discovered. Then he rushed into the temple's storage room to find a shovel and flashlight. Under the dim moonlight and flickering beam of the flashlight, Sophia began digging a grave. When finished digging, Sophia coldly pulled Nan's body down into this makeshift grave. But when the flashlight beam illuminated the victim's pale face, a sudden chill came over him. Perhaps influenced by folktales about ghosts he had heard or simply guilt beginning to emerge, Sophia suddenly feared that Nan's spirit would return for revenge. With superstitious and fearful psychology, he hurried back to his room to get a red cloth amulet, something he believed could prevent spirits from haunting. With trembling hands, Sophia placed this amulet around Nan's corpse's neck before beginning to cover it with soil. In his deluded mind, he believed this action would prevent her soul from appearing in dreams to relatives or returning to haunt him. To perfect the concealment, Sophia had another idea. He planted a young jackfruit tree over the grave, hoping that over time the tree would grow and create a natural camouflage, making no one suspect that underneath lay the burial site of a horrific crime. When everything was complete, Sophia stood silently before the grave he had just created, perhaps thinking about what had just happened or simply being in a state of shock. But after just a few minutes, survival instinct took precedence again. He quickly gathered all of Yan's belongings, including her purse, mobile phone, and motorcycle keys, then quietly left the crime scene. Right on that fateful night, after completing the act of concealing his crime, Sophia displayed terrifying coldness. He rode the victim's motorcycle, speeding through the dark night over 18 miles to Traven district to meet his new lover. The most horrifying thing was how he behaved completely normally, as if just hours before he hadn't just taken the life of a pregnant woman carrying his own child. While Sophia was enjoying time with his new girlfriend, Nan's family was plunged into complete panic. On the morning of September 14th, when Nan didn't return home as usual, everyone began feeling uneasy. They started searching, making continuous phone calls, posting missing person information on social media, contacting friends and relatives. None of them could imagine that Nan's fate had been permanently buried in the dark garden behind Watsam Rangak Temple, not far from home. While Nan's family lived in nightmare, Sophia returned to the temple participating in morning prayers, performing daily tasks as if nothing had happened. The mask of monk was maintained by him subtly. No one could recognize that behind that pure appearance was a murderer. Alongside maintaining his external image, Sophia also began implementing plans to eliminate remaining evidence. On September 15th, he tried to find ways to sell Nan's motorcycle and phone, hoping to dispose of his worries and turn them into cash. However, perhaps due to bare caution or complex legal procedures, these efforts were unsuccessful. Realizing that keeping the victim's motorcycle was an extremely dangerous threat, Sophia decided to act more decisively. On the afternoon of September 16th, he rode the motorcycle to Bosi Temple, a remote temple with few visitors. Here, he threw the motorcycle into the pond and tossed Nan's purse into nearby bushes, hoping they would disappear forever underwater and in dense vegetation. But fate didn't follow Sophia's wishes. His secret actions were witnessed by local residents. When discovered behaving suspiciously, Sophia panicked and fled the scene without completing the concealment, leaving behind clear evidence of a cover-up attempt. This haste and panic became the key that opened the entire case, leading to the complete collapse of the crime concealment plan he thought was perfect. Returning to the temple after the failed operation, Sophia began living with tormented conscience. Outwardly, he maintained a shell of an exemplary monk, but inside, obsession and fear grew daily. The amulet he once believed would prevent Nan's spirit from seeking revenge now couldn't dispel the persistent nightmares. Images of Nan and their unborn child kept appearing in his sleep, crying and demanding his life, turning each night into hell. The burden of guilt made him lose appetite and sleep. Even sleeping pills couldn't silence the mournful crying echoing in his ears. This torment pushed him to the brink of mental collapse. He gradually realized that conscience's punishment was more terrifying than legal sentences. After more than a month living in internal hell, he decided to confess his crimes, considering it the only path to self-liberation. When the official summons from the investigation agency came October 17th, Sophia finally realized the time to face truth had arrived. For days later, on October 21st, in the interrogation room, Sophia officially confessed the complete truth about the horrific crime he had committed, from the smallest details to subsequent cover-up actions. Not only stopping at confession, Sophia also agreed to actively cooperate with investigators, ready to lead them to where he had buried the victim's body. That same afternoon, they moved to Watson Rang Temple with heavy hearts, preparing for excavation that might reveal painful truths. Under Sophia's guidance, the team focused on the garden behind the temple. The young jackfruit tree he had planted as camouflage now became the precise location marker. With maximum caution, the excavation process proceeded layer by layer of soil until they approached what Sophia had concealed for over a month. And then under the sad, dim afternoon sunlight, the body of student Nun was found, ending over a month of desperate searching by family and friends. The red cloth amulet still hung around the victim's neck. The forensic examination results conducted immediately afterward reached a conclusion. Gan had died from strangulation leading to suffocation. Every detail matched exactly with the perpetrator's confession, leaving no room for any doubt about the truthfulness of the story he had told. The mystery shroud covering the disappearance case was officially lifted, exposing a shocking crime originating from blind passion, jealousy, and fear of losing reputation. Kim Sophia from a respected monk revealed his true nature, a cold-blooded killer who used monastic robes to cover a deviant and immoral lifestyle. Immediately after excavating the body, criminal investigation agencies executed an emergency arrest warrant against Kim Sophia for murder. Due to the particularly serious nature of the case, authorities coordinated with Travan Province Buddhist Association to conduct a defrocking ceremony for him. The monk's robes were officially removed, ending Sophia's status as a monk, forcing him to face the law as a criminal citizen. At this point, with irrefutable evidence, the prosecutor's office charged Kim Sophia with 2 crimes, murder and theft. The second charge was added because after committing the crime, he had appropriated and used the victim's personal property, including phone, purse, and motorcycle. The first instance trial took place in 2014, attracting special public attention. The trial panel determined the defendant's actions were particularly serious, not only taking life, but also brazenly violating the victim's property. For his crimes, Kim Sophia faced the maximum sentence of death. However, after considering mitigating circumstances, including honest confession and strong psychological provocation, due to the victim's prior attack, the court decided not to impose the death penalty. Instead, Kim Sophia received life imprisonment. This sentence was later upheld by the appellate court, officially closing the case legally. This was a strict sentence, yet also reflected the law's spirit of clemency. Kim Sophia would have to spend the rest of his life atoning for the crimes he committed. And that concludes today's case. Thank you for following along and see you in the next.